The 2025 NFL Draft will take place from April 24th through the 27th. Teams looking to fill those holes this offseason. The draft really a perfect opportunity to get some young talent. All week long, we're looking at each division and top draft needs. Today, focused in on the AFC North. Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden and our NFL writer John Breech joining us now on HQ, looking at those draft needs, as I just mentioned, for the AFC North. And we're going to start off with the Browns. There are still questions surrounding Deshaun Watson's health and future. You got to wonder at what point their GM, Andrew Berry, their head coach, Kevin Stefanski, they think maybe we should put a new QB in at the fold. Barry also came out and said that they have zero interest in trading Myles Garrett. That's also a hot topic there. So number 2 pick, BMAC, what do the Browns need to do?
Quarterback. Go find a quarterback. The Browns, they've been in quarterback hell. It feels like forever since I can remember the Cleveland Browns organization. Think about this, guys. Since 2010, 27 different quarterbacks have started for the Cleveland Browns. 27 different quarterbacks. No stability, no structure. They just been playing musical chairs at that position, and the song has never ended. So now you got to go find a franchise guy that you can build around. Now you got to go find a franchise quarterback that could be in your organization for a decade plus. That's what they need to go get. And being in the position they're currently sitting in, John, they have an opportunity to go get that said guy, either if it's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. So me personally seeing how bad they've been at that position in terms of stability and just structure, go get you a franchise guy, build around him, and just have that stability in the organization, something they haven't been able to do, it seems like forever.
Yeah, BMAC is absolutely correct here. The quarterback position has been an absolute nightmare for the Browns. We've all seen that jersey that has the list of 25 names on it of all the starters since the franchise came back in 1999. And one of the problems is that they just end up blowing these draft picks. I mean, a homeless guy told Jimmy Haslam to pick Johnny Manziel in 2014. That's how you have quarterback problems, because these bizarre situations come up. But now the Browns are in an absolutely perfect spot this year with the number 2 overall pick. As you guys mentioned, look, Andrew Berry has stuck to the fact that, hey, we don't want to trade Myles Garrett. He's a superstar. So I think the Browns are in a good spot because, one, if you love Cam Ward or if you love Shedeur Sanders, you have the number 2 overall pick. So one of those guys will be there for you. Now, if you only love one of them, say Cam Ward, and he goes number 1 overall, well, now you have Abdul Carter there, and that makes it interesting because then maybe you could trade Myles Garrett since you have the top pass rusher in the draft sitting right there for you at number 2 overall. So the Browns absolutely should be looking at quarterback, but I do think it's nice for them to kind of have that safety net of the top pass rusher there if the quarterback they want isn't there at number 2 overall.
Let's talk about their in-state rivals in the Cincinnati Bengals.
Let's talk about them, Jacqueline.
Yeah, let's do it, because they have a lot of stars, if you will, that they want to keep under contract in T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson. Outside of that, too, you have Joe Burrow, who is in the MVP conversation, despite your defense letting up a whole lot of points in every single game. So, Breech, it feels
you don't seem mad about it at all.
Oh, you know I love my Bengals. I lived there for 3 years in Cincinnati.
You cheered there?
I did cheer there. So, Breech, I feel, my heartstrings are pulling here. I want it to work for the Cincinnati Bengals, but you got to address the defense, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have an MVP candidate quarterback and a wide receiver who wins the Triple Crown, you should be in the playoffs at a minimum, probably in the Super Bowl. But no, the Bengals didn't even get to the postseason. So the reason that didn't happen is because the defense was an absolute disaster. This was a team that gave up 34 points or more in 6 games. And this was a team that went 3-4 when their offense scored at least 33 points. Your offense scores 33 points in 7 games. You should go 7-0, not 3-4. So when you look at what the Bengals need to do, the only guy they really have on that front 7 on defense is Trey Hendrickson. Yes, he led the NFL in sacks with 17.5, but the rest of the team only had 18.5 combined. So Trey Hendrickson almost had more by himself than the rest of the entire defense combined. So you look at what Cincinnati needs to do. They either need to add some pass rush, maybe get some help on the defensive line, and maybe you go quarterback. But I think if you're the Bengals right now, you just need to give Trey Hendrickson some help, get some to stop the run, really. So you need those interior defensive line guys. I think someone like Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss could be big if he's there. Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. So if you are the Bengals, focus on that front 7 and specifically that interior defensive line.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. The defensive line is the way to go. Walter Nolan would be an ideal pick for the Cincinnati Bengals. He reminds me a lot of former Bengals great Geno Atkins, a bit undersized, around 6'3", around 300 pounds, but he has a motor. He plays with great hands, and he's not a one-trick pony. He's a guy that can be disruptive in run support, but he also can go out and chase guys and try to make things miserable for guys like a Lamar Jackson, because that's who you're hunting in your division. So go get you some players that can go hunt Lamar Jackson and slow down Derrick Henry. I'm a big fan of Walter Nolan. I think if he's available there at 17, don't waste any time. Go put his name in and make him a Cincinnati Bengal.
All right, pick number 21 belongs to the Steelers. Their owner, Art Rooney, recently stated in his preference to either bring back their two quarterbacks. They have Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. Going to bring back one of them at least. Now, regardless of who's under center, B-Mac, you got to expect that Pittsburgh wants some more offensive weapons, correct?
Yes, they need playmakers. Last year, the only playmaker was George Pickens. And when he wasn't involved, he didn't have any playmaking ability at all on the offensive side. So at the 21st pick, go get you a playmaker. And if this player is available, John Breech, get your popcorn ready. Even though you and Jacqueline, oddly enough, are Cincinnati Bengals fans, you might not like this pick. Ashton Genty at 21. One thing I know about the Pittsburgh Steelers, they do not mind investing first-round draft picks in offensive line, D-line, linebackers, or running backs. And you look at Najee Harris, we don't know if he will return for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They declined to pick up his fifth-year option. And if Ashton happens to fall to them at 21, you go make this selection. He will be a bona fide playmaker for their offense. You look at what the Pittsburgh Steelers have done in years past in the draft. They address the offensive line. The best way to get the most out of those offensive linemen you've added to your team, go get them a guy that can run the football. And he is the best running back available in the draft.
Yeah, I do absolutely agree with B-Mac there. If Ashton Genty is on the board, then the Steelers should absolutely draft him. But the Steelers are in a unique position because they don't have necessarily a huge need. They probably need a number 2 wide receiver behind George Pickens, a running back to pair with Jaylen Warren, and if it is Genty, he would instantly become the number 1 guy there. Maybe some help on the offensive line, but I think they could also stand to add some depth on defense. And if there's one thing we haven't seen the Steelers do over the past 5 years, it's use a first-round pick on a defensive player, which I'm sure kind of nags at Mike Tomlin because he's a defensive-minded guy. He would love to add some talent in the first round. So the Steelers have a ton of options here. I think maybe beefing up the defensive line would help. We mentioned that with the Bengals, so you have kind of a similar list of guys like Walter Nolan or Shamar Stewart or Kenneth Grant. So you have guys that are going to be available. But yeah, I would go with the defensive side of the ball. Unless Ashton Genty's there, then absolutely take him.
B-Mac, I have to let you know, my dad is from West Mifflin, so I do have love for the Steelers as well. I've had my fair share of Permane Brothers sandwiches.
Teams.
It's not my team. I'm just saying, like, I have family from there.
You got to pick one.
No.
You got to pick one.
You guys, I know the Venn diagram of, like, folks that have love for the Bengals and the Steelers is only me in the middle of the circle there. But hey, I'm in it. Oh, well. Let's talk about the Ravens because it is always all about the postseason, right? Lamar Jackson, he's, a 2-time MVP, but it just feels like they cannot get over the hump. They've been to one AFC title game in the Lamar Jackson era. So, Breech, who can they target in this draft to finally get over the hump, get back to a Super Bowl, win another Super Bowl maybe?
Hey, look, if you're the Baltimore Ravens, your bread and butter is Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. So what can you do to help them? Well, you can draft an offensive lineman. You really look at where Baltimore is and what their situation is right now. Ronnie Stanley could leave in free agency. I know the Ravens would probably like to keep him, but if the money gets too high and he walks away, now you absolutely need a left tackle. So I think that's where the Ravens need to start looking. That's kind of what they need to be focusing on as they head into the NFL draft. And when you look at the tackles who might be there when the Ravens pick 27th overall, well, you see that list. They're not going to have any shot at someone like Kelvin Banks, but there are players who could be there. I think Josh Simmons from Ohio State is a great example. He's been dealing with the patellar injury that he had surgery on in October, so maybe his stock falls a little, and maybe he falls down to that 27th spot. Josh Connerly Jr. out of Oregon would be another solid pick for the Ravens, so I think they need to keep their eye on left tackle. But if that if there is not a guy that they like there, you could also go to the secondary, because the Ravens did give up the second most passing yards in the NFL during the 2024 season, so they could definitely use some help there. So I'd go left tackle, secondary as my two biggest needs if I'm Baltimore.
For me, I go edge rusher. When you're in a conference that have quarterbacks like Joe Burrow, Pat Mahomes, and Josh Allen, I need to go find players who look like what they hunt. And James Pierce Jr. is that guy. When you look at Kyle Van Noy, had an outstanding year, double-digit sacks. He's in the final year of his contract, John, and he's 33 years old. So you need to go add some more depth that can go put pressure on those quarterbacks that I mentioned. Because if you have any aspirations of having a successful season, and most importantly, trying to get to another Super Bowl, you got to go find guys that can go hunt down Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Pat Mahomes, because that's the name of the game right now. And James Pierce had an outstanding career there at Tennessee and Knoxville. He does a great job in being relentless. He has a nice bend, a dip, nice hand placement as well, and a big time motor. And I'm hearing potentially he goes to Indy and run a high 4.5. So if he puts down that type of athleticism, you better believe he will open a lot of eyes out in Indy. So if he's available for the Baltimore Ravens, go ahead and continue to add another athletic edge rusher to your defense.
BMAC, John, don't go anywhere. We got much more coming from the two of you as we take a look at the odds to win the Super Bowl. Now, this is just the AFC North teams. The Ravens have the shortest odds at plus 700. Bengals at 19-1. The Steelers plus 7,500. The Browns, well, they are a long shot.
Yes, to say the least.